Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 13th episode of Truth Tracker, a podcast dedicated to combating misinformation and promoting civic engagement within the political scene of the United States of America. Before we get into this episode, I just want to first start off by thanking everyone for all their support in the last episodes. In the last couple of episodes, it definitely means a lot. And so, if you have enjoyed these last couple of episodes, I would encourage you to so first off subscribe to the channel, as well as like any past episodes that you've enjoyed, as well as turn on post notifications. That way, you can be notified anytime that we upload one of our new episodes of our podcast. So, with that being said, this episode is going to be on the importance of voting, right? Because one of our missions here at Truth Tracker is not only to bust misinformation, but also to promote civic engagement. And so, as the election is obviously getting closer and closer, it's only about uh, two 2 to 3 days, depending on when you're watching this, or maybe it's over by the time you're watching this. But you know, as the election gets closer and closer, it's going to be important that we encourage everyone to vote and use their civic right to share their voice and share their message about the politics of our country. And so, in order to sort of promote civic engagement and voter registration today, we're going to have this a bit of a different episode. We are going to actually, for this episode, talk about promoting civic engagement and voting in our episode. And so, with that being said, let's get into the 13th episode today of Truth Checker, where we talk about the importance of voting. So, in a democratic society, voting is one of the most significant ways, we can express our values, priorities, and hopes for a future, right? Because it's not just a right, it's our responsibility as citizens. Voting allows us to influence the policies that shape our community and our life. And so, when you cast your ballot, you're making your voice heard on issues that matter to you, whether it's, education, healthcare, infrastructure, the environment, or social justice. And so, it doesn't matter who you vote for or what party you support or maybe what issues you're voting on. It's important you get out there and you cast your ballot in order to allow you to influence the policies that shape your community and your life. And so that's kind of the big importance around voting, is that it allows you to really make an influence in your local communities. Now, another big sort of misconception that we have regarding voting is that many people often think that their single vote does not matter. However, history demonstrates that elections can be decided by, a remarkably small number of votes. For instance, there's been many recent elections or there's been many recent local elections where, the outcomes have hinged on, just a few dozen votes. And so your participation is essential. Every vote counts and contributes to the overall outcome of elections, especially in tight races and in swing states. And so, in order to promote voting, it's important to, sort of take a moment and address some common myths about voting. First, there's this myth that one vote doesn't really matter, but in reality, every single vote contributes to the collective decision in the election. And so, remember, in many cases, elections can be decided by a slim margin, and so every vote does truly make a difference. Second, many people believe that voting is simply too complicated or burdensome. Now, while the voting process may seem overwhelming, there are many, ample resources available to help guide you. There's many websites online from, local governments that provide step-by-step instructions on how to register, where to vote, and what to expect on Election Day, which can help alleviate the burdensome nature of voting. Another common myth is that voting doesn't change anything in America. Now, this is far from the truth. Elections can lead to significant shifts in policies that affect various aspects of our lives, from local community programs to national legislation. And so by voting, you actively participate in, the shaping of the future of your country. And so now that we've, debunked some myths regarding voting, let's discuss, how you can get involved in the voting process in the upcoming general election. And so the first step is to check your registration. First and foremost, ensure that you are registered to vote. You can check your registration status online through your state's election office website. And if you're not registered, look up the requirements in your state, because each state has its own rules, deadlines, and policies to follow. And so it's crucial to be informed on the voter registration process. And so once you're registered, it's time to research and educate yourself on the candidates and the issues. Look into the candidates that are running for office and the measures that are on your ballot. And so this includes not only these sort of national and state candidates that occupy a large portion of the media, but also local races and propositions that could significantly impact your community. There's many nonpartisan organizations that often provide voter guides that summarize candidates' positions and explain issues and ballot measures in a very accessible and easy language. The next step is to make a voting plan, right? Decide how you're going to vote. Will you vote early? Maybe you're going to vote by mail, or maybe you're going to go to the polls on election day. And so consider your schedule and what works best for you. And so if you choose to vote by mail, actually request your ballot well in advance and check the deadlines for submission. And if you plan to vote in person, make sure you know the location of your polling place and its hours of operation. That way, you can be sure that your voting plan is accurate and will ensure your voice is heard. And finally, the last step is to go and vote. Make sure you exercise your voice in order to make sure that your beliefs are being heard in the future of this country. Furthermore, engagement with your community is also key. Encourage your friends and family to register and vote. Discuss the issues that matter to you, and share information about the voting process. Maybe you can consider hosting informational sessions or participating in local forums or discussions. And so when we have communities that come together to promote, voting and civic engagement, that can create a more informed electorate, which can lead to higher voter turnout rates. And so, as we approach, upcoming elections, remember that, your voice matters. By voting, you contribute to shaping policies that reflect your values and priorities. And it's not just about the candidate, it's about the issues that affect your community and your life. And so, at the end of the day, remember, it is absolutely critical that we all get out there and vote. The impact of, voter turnout, cannot be overstated. When more people vote, it reflects a more representative democracy, as higher voter turnout is often associated, like we said, with a more engaged and informed electorate. And so conversely, low turnout can lead to outcomes that do not, accurately reflect the will of the people. And so to encourage turnout, it's essential to address barriers that may prevent various groups of people from voting, such as a lack of access to polling places, limited information about the voting process, and socioeconomic challenges, and it's, in order to sort of combat that problem, community organizations and grassroots movement play a very vital role in mobilizing voters and ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to participate. And so when we look at voter participation over the last couple of years, it's clear that technology has transformed the way we approach voting. There's online voter registration, mail-in ballots, and even electronic voting machines, which have made it easier for people to participate in elections. And so it's important to use all these technologies and ensure that, you're using your right to vote, because, voting not only ensures that, your voice is being heard, but it also allows you to hold your elected officials accountable and, make sure that, your views on certain policies are being heard by politicians. Furthermore, when you vote, it's important to know your rights, right? Understand your rights as a voter. If you encounter problems at the polls or feel that your voting rights are being violated, it's essential to know where to seek help. There's many organizations across the country there's many electoral organizations across the country that can provide guidance and support. And so furthermore, to further emphasize the importance of voting, it's important to also take a moment to recognize, the historical context of voting rights. Many individuals and groups have fought tirelessly for the right to vote and have made sacrifices along the way. In the U.S., the right to vote has evolved significantly over the years through various amendments and landmark legislation, such as the 15th Amendment, the 19th Amendment, and the Voting Rights Act, which have increased voter turnout, which has allowed, more and more people to vote in the United States of America. And so understanding this history not only informs us about the struggles that have shaped our voting rights, but also, underscore the importance of exercising those rights that many people have fought for today in this upcoming election. Moving on, it's important to also address the importance of voting as a civic duty, right? Because because voting is part of your civic duty, it allows you to make your voice heard and allow you to maybe represent, your peers and the beliefs of the people around you, and make sure that their voices are also being are heard, because voting is one of the most powerful tools we have as citizens. It allows us to express our opinions on crucial issues. And so when we do that, when we use our right to vote, it's our chance to stand up for what we believe in and to advocate for the changes that we want to see throughout the country, right? As I want everyone who's listening right now to have some introspection right now. Think about issues that matter most to you. Perhaps you're passionate about, education reform, healthcare accessibility, environmental protection, or social justice. Voting is how you can influence those areas. It's not just about, choosing a candidate or, checking a simple box on a ballot. It's about advocating for policies that align with your values and priorities. And again, to address this point, many people often underestimate the power of their individual vote and, believe that voting is just a waste because they believe their voice isn't heard. It's easy to feel that one vote won't make a difference, but, throughout history, I mean, you can look at the 2000 presidential election. George W. Bush won Florida, which was the state that ultimately swung the election in his favor by just a couple hundred votes, or by just a couple hundred votes, and this ultimately secured him the presidency. And this is a clear illustration in history of how every single vote can have a significant impact on elections. Furthermore, again, local elections are often decided by fewer votes. Many community level decisions, such as school board elections and city council races, can be very close and can hinge on, a small amount of ballots. And so when you consider that your vote contributes to these outcomes, it becomes clear just how important it is to vote. And so if you ever feel that, you don't know enough about the candidates or issues in this upcoming election, there's many resources available to help you educate yourself, whether that's, nonpartisan, or there's many nonpartisan electoral organizations and that have, offer voter guides and information sheets that break down, candidates' positions and explain ballot measures and issues. And so, like we say again, if you have any questions regarding, the process of voting, please, please, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. We will definitely make sure to respond to them quickly as the election is coming up. Furthermore, if you have any issues and you want to, share that with us, please let us know. We will do our best to help you overcome those issues regarding your voting plan and your or in your voting process. Because ultimately it's important that everyone gets out to the ballots, and no matter what candidate you support or whatever party you support, and gets out there and supports. And so at the end of the day, like we say, again, we've done many civic engagement segments these last couple or ever since the podcast was created, and ultimately it's going to all in preparation of encouraging voter turnout and civic engagement as we get into the general election. And so I know this episode was a little bit different today, and ultimately that sort of that sort of emphasizes just the importance of getting everyone out there to vote in this upcoming election, because like we say again, it's super important to make sure that everyone gets out there, vote, and you make sure that their voice is being heard within the political scene of the United States of America, because that is one of our main obviously objectives on this podcast, is to boost civic engagement and political participation and voter engagement in a nonpartisan manner. And so with that being said, thank you so much everyone for watching today's episode. Again, like we say over and over again, if there's one last message that we have, is everyone make sure to get out there and vote. If when there's more voters, our country everyone's voices tend to be more well represented, and ultimately at the end of the day, voting exercising your civic duty to vote allows you to hold your elected officials accountable, create change in your community, as well as advocate for the policies and the candidates and the parties that you believe your beliefs most align with. And so with that being said, if you have any questions regarding voting, please feel free to jot them down within the comments. And so this was a little special episode today as we get closer to the general election. We wanted to sort of address the episode of vote, or sort of address the importance of voting. And so if you enjoyed this episode of Truth Tracker, please feel free to drop a like or subscribe to this channel. If you could, that would be great, as well as turn on post notifications. That way you can be notified anytime we upload one of our weekly episodes. And that being said, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great day, and make sure to get out there and vote in this general election. If you have any questions regarding voting, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. Have a great day.